Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. My immediate purpose is to place before the world, plainly, succinctly, and without comment, a series of mere household events. From my infancy, I was noted for the docility and humanity of my disposition. My tenderness of heart was even so conspicuous as to make me the jest of my companions. I was especially fond of animals. I was indulged by my parents with a great variety of pets. With these, I spent most of my time, and never was so happy as when feeding and caressing them. I married early, and was happy to find in my wife a disposition non congenial with my own. Observing my partiality for domestic pets, she lost no opportunity of procuring those of the most agreeable kind. Pluto, Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he attended me wherever I went about the house. I grew day by day more moody, more irritable, more regardless of the feelings of others. I suffered myself to use imperative language to my wife. My pets, of course, were made to feel the change in my disposition. I not only regretted for Pluto, wherever I still retained sufficient regard to restrain me from maltreating him. One night, returning home, much intoxicated, I fancied that the cat avoided me by my presence. I seized him, when in his fright at my violence, he inflicted a slight wound upon my hand with his teeth. Took from my waistcoat pocket a penknife, opened it, grasped the poor beast by my throat, and deliberately cut one of its eyes from the socket. The socket of the lost eye presented, it is true, a frankful appearance, but he no longer appeared to suffer any pain. He went about the house as usual, but as might be expected, fled in extreme terror at my approach. One morning, in cool blood, I slipped a noose about its neck and hung it to the limb of a tree. One of the night of the day on which this cruel death was done, I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty that my wife, a servant, and myself made our escape from the conflagration. I went so far as to regret the loss of the animal, and to look about me, among the vile haunts which I now habitually frequented, for the another pet of the same species, and of somewhat similar appearance, with which supply its place. It was a black cat as Pluto, and closely resembling him in every respect but one. Pluto had not a white hair upon any portion of his body, but this cat had a splotch of white, covering nearly the whole region of the body. When I prepared to go home, the animal evinced a disposition to accompany me. When it reached the house, it domesticated itself at once, and became immediately a great favorite with my wife. For my own part, I soon found a dislike to arising with me, avoided the creature a certain sense of shame and the remembrance of my former death of cruelty, preventing me from physical abusing it. Although I longed to destroy it with a blow, I was yet withheld from so doing, partly by a memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess it at once, by absolute dread of my beast. Evil thoughts became my sole inmates. The darkness and most evil of thoughts, the moodiness of my usual temper increased to hatred of all things and of all mankind. The cat followed me down the steep stairs, and nearly throwing my headlong exasperated me to madness. I aimed a blow at the animal which, of course, would have proved instantly fatal had it descended as I wished. This blow was arrested by the hand of my wife, goaded by the inference into a rage more than demoniacal. I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe in her brain. By means of a crowbar, I easily dislodged the bricks, and having carefully deposited the body against the inner wall, I propped it in that position while, with light trouble, I relayed the wall structure as it originally stood. When I had finished, I felt satisfied that all was right. The wall did not present the slight appearance of having been disturbed. The rubbish on the floor was picked up with the minutest care. My next step was to look for the beast which had been the cause of much greatness, for I had, at length, firmly resolved to put it to death. The second and the third day passed, and still my tormentor came not. Once again I breathed as a freeman. Upon the fourth day of the assassination, a party of the police came. For the third or fourth time, they descended into a cellar. I quivered not a muscle, and the police were thoroughly satisfied and prepared to depart. I rapped heavily with a cane which I held in my hand upon that very portion of the brick wall behind which stood the corpse of the wife of my bosom. I was answered by a voice from within the tomb, by a cry, at first muffled and broken, like the sobbing of a child, and the quickly swelling into one long loud and continuous scream, utterly anomalous and inhuman. The stairs remained monotonous, through the extremity of terror of a wave. It fell bodily, his corpse, already greatly decayed and clotted with gore, stood erect before the eyes of the spectators.